All right, so this is the last lesson in this chapter working with polynomials, although we'll keep working with polynomials for the remainder of this unit. And the last lesson was looking at multiplying a polynomial by a monomial. Now we're dividing. And so here's two examples. And actually, before I talk about any of them, before I really focus on this first one, what I have here is a binomial being divided by a monomial. 6a plus 3 is the 2 term, and I'm dividing by 3, 1 term. Think back to the last lesson, what if it was 3 times 6a plus 3? What if it was 6a plus 3 times 3 instead of divided by 3? Well, the idea is we realize that everything inside the bracket is being multiplied by 3, so we literally multiply each of these terms out. In this case, we get 18a plus 9, and we'd be done. Well, same idea here, except everything inside 6a plus 3 is being divided by 3. And so one way we can make this more clear is literally break this up into two smaller fractions. So instead of 6a plus 3 all divided by 3, I can write it as 6a divided by 3 plus 3 divided by 3. That's essentially what this means. If I have multiple terms all being divided by some value, I can divide each of those individual terms by that value. And in this case, if I look at each of these individually, 6a over 3, well, 6 over 3 reduces to 2 over 1, so all I've left is 2a for that term. Plus 3 divided by 3 is just 1 whole. And I'm done. And that's the sort of idea behind all of these. It's essentially the distributive property, but we're dividing by 3 instead of multiplying by 3. Very, very similar. So we don't want to get thrown off by the fact that it looks maybe kind of scary because of these fractions. So let's look at this one. And so again, here's my binomial dividing by this monomial here. And so like before, I'm going to break this up into two smaller but simpler fractions. To 6a squared divided by negative 3 minus 3b over negative 3. Now another option I could do, although I'll change this, I could say put a plus sign here and then put the minus right there. 6a squared over minus 3 plus negative 3b over negative 3. I could do that as well. In the end, it's the same thing. I feel like that's more complex than it was before. Although it is equivalent, I like that better. You can see with the highlighting how everything compares. And now look at these individual monomials. The first one, 6 over negative 3, simplifies to 2 over negative 1, or, what I like a little better, negative 2 over positive 1. Right? 6 divided by negative 3 is negative 2. So I have negative 2, and a squared, nothing cancels out with that, so it's just negative 2a squared. And then over here, I have minus 3 divided by negative 3 is negative 1. Or, what I like a little better, instead of subtracting a negative, I'll just change this right away to plus 1b, because the b divides by nothing else. And I don't really need that 1, so all I need to have is this in the end. All right, so I just have 2 more, and the only difference I want to do is for these last 2 is I'm going to kind of skip this step right here. I'm not literally going to write them as 2 separate fractions. It's not a bad idea, but you may not really need to do that. So if I look at these last 2, here they are. Same idea, but instead of literally writing all of this over minus 3b twice, I'm just going to kind of look at it. And first I'm going to look at this pair right here and think, what is 6a squared b squared divided by negative 3b? Well, 6 divided by negative 3 is negative 2. A squared divided by nothing else is just a squared. B squared divided by b is b. Now I'll look at this pair. Minus 3 divided by minus 3 is positive 1. B squared divided by b is just b. And again, that little 1 in the front I don't need anymore, so I'll just write it as just b. Now, if that was too quick, then do what I did before. Literally write this as, this fraction minus this. And here's the last example. All right, so first, again, I'm going to look at this. 6ab divided by 0.75b. So first thing I need to think about is what is 6 divided by 0.75, which again, you don't need a calculator, same as 6 divided by 3/4. And dividing by any fraction, dividing by any number, same as multiplying by the reciprocal. And then you hit 6 over 1 times 4 over 3 is 24 over 3, or just 8 whole. Okay, that said, might as well just use a calculator, because the focus of this is not so much on all this arithmetic. But in the end, 6 divided by 0.75 is 8. A divided by no other A is just A. B divided by B is 1. Cancels out. I'm not going to bother writing down times 1. And now look at this pair. I have negative 3 divided by 0.75, which again, if I could do the same things before, or I could go to a calculator, or there's a whole bunch of ways of approaching it. In the end, that's negative 4. And B divided by B cancels out. And I'm done. So essentially for all of these, I have a polynomial, in this case mostly binomials, 2 terms, and I'm dividing by something. Whereas in the previous lesson, we were multiplying by something. But it's extremely similar. And that's it. Need some practice. For sure we need practice at this. But there's no other concepts to cover for this chapter.